Well, I got you. I got him here.
Finally.
Yeah. It took a little while.
Can't believe it.
Took a little while.
In the studio.
So, we're not going to bore the folks tuning in to all the shenanigans that our prior employment and our prior lives. I mean, the people we knew and the infamous and the famous and the infamous. But I want you to talk a little bit about your recollections of the beginning of the internet. Let's start there. Do you remember like when you first had an understanding of what the internet was and how it was applying to your job? Because you were in a unique position. It was kind of forced on you.
Yeah. I mean, the context of the internet now, to think what the kids have access to in school. My daughter was just a couple of days ago needed a project for what countries in Africa speak French, and she had an incomplete assignment because she didn't know how to get the information.
Okay.
My wife and I were like, "What, are you kidding me? I mean, just ask Siri. Hey Siri, how many countries in Africa speak French?" And whatever. So it's so simple, but things that we took for granted.
No excuses
College.
anymore.
I don't remember the internet until we started at the paging network of Pittsburgh.
Okay, so
I believe beginning.
Yes,
My beginning.
Yes. So when I unwind the internet, I'm always told by people, they want to say, hey, it started in the late 80s with the networking with colleges. I'm sure it probably technically did, but would you say like 95 is just when it started to be available to the masses, although it wasn't, but it technically was being introduced to the public? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think with the dial-up, we had AOL, right? We dial in.
9600 baud modem.
Yeah, and you drop the call, you'd be like, no! Whatever we were trying to do on the internet. But and we had, the way we used the internet was just to transmit data, simple amounts of it. I mean,
right.
So I think it's, what was that, 40, 30 years ago? 30-some years ago?
No, come on now.
Huh?
Let's see. No, not that long ago.
20? 25?
25, maybe. So we were working for a company called PageNet, which was a national paging firm, and the idea of two-way, is that the first thing they wanted to do was like two-way communication? Because paging was one way, that was two-way. But this internet thing was supposed to be the highway that the stuff was going to work on. And this is very remedial, but that's how I remember it. Is that correct? Is that how it was sold to you?
I think so. And how do you get information back and forth, right? And we were just in the beginning of it, and we weren't sure what was going to be the prevailing form of. The beginning was just transmitting small amounts of data. Yeah. Right. Messages, like text messages, and things like that. We thought that maybe you could ping information to a device, and that'd be the way it would go. Right. And we would start with our advanced product division. Right. It
was very advanced.
Yeah. We'd call on trucking companies or service companies and see is there ways that we could help them pull information back and forth on our devices. Unfortunately,
like driver information, delivery information, specific information, or customized to their business application. In theory, that's what you were trying to do.
Yeah, we got all excited with that. We're gonna make it big, right? Company was. I think I put all my 401k into PageNet stock, 90% of it.
So did I. Because
lost every dime of it.
I did the same thing. Yeah, I went and did the same thing. Yeah,
bankruptcies.
It was a good lesson to learn. It was a good lesson to learn. But when you think about you actually were unique because your particular job function there was to introduce new products on this new thing, which were going to ride on this new thing called the internet, which none of us knew what the fuck it was. None of us did. I mean, it was, and then when someone tried to explain it to me that on my computer, you're going to be able to type in this window and you'll be able to go somewhere and grab information at will. I'm like, it sounds too complicated. It'll never catch on. I'm not going to worry about it.
Yeah, we'll just be picking up the phone and placing stock trades and everything forever. But I think that's one of the first things that I probably used to start doing stock trades and doing.
I changed that whole industry quick.
It did, yeah. Things advanced very quickly.
Yeah, I just think about the idea of, like, there were big ideas in communication the ideas might have been actually bigger than the technology was at that moment to deliver the ideas. A lot of ideas, right?
Yeah.
The industry as a whole.
Tons of ideas.
Yeah. I mean, you left communications probably around the same time or close to the same time I did, which was like I left at the end of '99, went to a different industry. So have you taken any time to watch or even reflect on how the internet's matured since that period of time?
Yeah, and I often thought if I stayed in that space, right? I remember looking at positions with Apple back in the late 90s, being like a new product specialist or something like that. You had to move to Sunnyvale or somewhere in California, right. And I just kind of pulled myself out of it. But instead, we Motorola. I don't know if they're still even around, but
Motorola was the device manufacturer, right, back then.
Yeah. Do you remember Four Systems by any chance?
I certainly do.
You remember the
building was built like asymmetrical or something?
Still there. I don't know if there's anything in there now anymore in Cranberry, but they sold that to British Telecom, I think it was, for like $3 billion.
Back then.
Yeah. That asynchronous mode, what was it called?
Asynchronous
transfer mode, ATM. Not like the Mac machines, but it was a way to transmit data. They thought that was going to be one of the prevailing ways, and it didn't. It went bust. I think both British Telecom went under too. I think, or maybe they were acquired by someone. Yeah, different ways of transmitting data. There's so many different ways. No one really knew.
So there wasn't a standard, is what you're trying to say. They were betting on their technology would become the standard.
Yeah.
Do you remember also there was a company right around the time, late 90s, that or early 2000s that did reverse auctions here in Pittsburgh? I think Glenn Meekum was the president. They were they were supposed to be the next thing too. It was ironic that Four Systems and this firm were both in Pittsburgh.
Free markets.
That was it. Yeah, that was going to be the next.
What happened
thing.
to Free Markets?
I honestly don't. I think they were sold to another firm, which I don't know how that ultimately worked out. I'm sure somebody got their money. Right?
So who's the guy from around here that he sold AOL, or was it Mark Cuban? Didn't he sell something?
I think Mark Cuban sold. Did Mark Cuban sell the technology that ultimately became YouTube, the video platform?
Oh, man, a lot of people made money.
Yeah,
we missed keep out.
you and I were not
paging, baby. We
were in that space, but yeah, for sure. The thing that the internet changed my life. I did online marketing with guitars thing. Sure. I get it all. I get all of that, and I'm appreciative of it all. But if you fast forward a bit, Steve, we're in odd times for a lot of reasons, but the social media component of the connectivity on the internet, 2005-ish with MySpace, which no one really paid attention to, but then like in 2008, I think, when FaceNet started to grab a hold. Since that time, it's had like this crazy effect on society as a whole. And I don't mean how business is done. That naturally is part of the program, but I'm talking about the way that we operate as a society. It appears, just an opinion, that has had a seismic change in how we communicate and deal and treat each other. I'm not entirely sure it's always good.
Yeah, a lot of it's not good. I've lost contacts with many people due to social media stuff. And
really?
It's ridiculous, man. The arguments and fights people get into on social media. I have a very low profile on social media these days.
That's why I thought you'd be perfect for this conversation.
Yeah, it's
and it's intentional.
Yeah, it's not necessarily that I don't look for conflict, but it's just a waste of time. I would just get, like many other people, you sit there and read those feeds and posts and comments, and you find it just makes you so angry. It can take over. And so many people let that happen. You see the bitterness and the anger that they express on social media. So I choose to very little. I like social media, like Facebook, just for keeping up with people, what they're doing. Happy birthday, congratulations, things like that. Maybe it's sharing unfortunate news as well, which is also good to know about.
It's like a big. You're using it as a town hall.
Yeah. Except LinkedIn is a professional site, and I use it strictly for that purpose. Networking and sharing information related to the field that I'm in and learning more about about competition, about breakthroughs in medical research and medical devices, which is where I've been for a while. So.
Do you see that LinkedIn, is it getting polluted? Are there elements of LinkedIn that are being customized like Facebook or like other social media platforms? Do you see the T's in there? They have a like button now, and I'm just wondering, do you see any of that happening?
Yeah, there's still a lot of people use it for a private purpose that I don't think it should be used for. A lot of people express their opinions about stuff and even bring politics into
even there
LinkedIn, and that's I just don't want to. I don't have the time for any of that stuff right now. I'm putting my life too busy. Yeah. See, social media for my kids, there's Snapchat and TikTok. Mm-hmm. I don't even have an account though. I don't know if you do. Do you have a TikTok account?
I did. I never did anything with it, so I just erased it. Same thing with this Threads. This new one from Facebook or Meta has a Twitter alternative called Threads. And I guess if you have an Instagram account, they automatically give you a Threads account too. And I got that and disposed of that too. But I guess that's the new thing.
I don't know, man. It's more reason to spend more time on a device, which, not me, not my thing.
Let me ask you this. How do you manage that? Because I'm on, Facebook helped me build a business. It actually helped me transition from eBay as a commerce platform to Facebook. In addition, because it was free, the marketing was free. So then into real estate, it was a natural progression. But I can see I have to schedule certain amounts of time and fight my urge at times to look and peruse. It's because I realize that to me, Steve, that's not reality. It's becoming. We'll get there in a little bit, but it's coming reality for most people. I want to talk about how that weighs. But how do you manage your time like that? Do you? Because most people, I'm probably guessing, can't or won't. I should say.
I cut back several years ago, probably in the last election cycle, 2020 maybe.
Okay.
During COVID, just so much time at home, and I'd be laying in bed at 2 a.m, reading Twitter posts and just like you out there.
You got.
And then finally one day I'm like, what the hell am I doing?
You got sucked in.
What am I doing?
Twitter wars.
I get so angry, and I got banned, I got blocked, everything else.
See, I don't know any of this. This is great.
Sure.
This is great. I thought you were impervious to that.
No, it's yeah. So that's just a choice. You use it for good. I like the post that you
generally
put out there.
Yeah. I can.
Tell me your thoughts, kind of stuff. Versus,
yeah,
you suck if you think this way. You're a bad person.
Here's the thing. It took me a while to get this too, because I got in the beginning of social media, my first dab into it. It was very confrontational, and you start to believe your own bullshit. Your way is the only way, or I must be right, or I need to prove to somebody that I am right or correct. And then realize when you at some point if you're paying attention, you realize that no one ever changes their mind. Nobody really cares, and you have no self-importance, because unfortunately it appears that the wise and the brainless have the equal footing there. They have equal footing. So if everybody's on a level playing field in terms of reach, what are you trying to gain? Why? So why, in your opinion, do you think people just generally want to prove that they're right or they're correct? And where did that come from? Because it appears to me they really... if I'm wrong, by all means tell me. That if that's not what you're seeing, it just appears to me that there's a desire to constantly prove that I'm correct.
Yeah. You see something and you're like, oh, I'm going to forward this. I'm going to post this. Look at this information about this that happened. Can you believe that person? See why they're such a crook? Why they're... First of all, how do you even know any of that's true? It's all disinformation, or a good bit of it is, right? So it's just such a big waste of time, man. There's so many better things to do in life than to do stuff like that. Why do people want to... It's your question. Yeah. Why do people want to feel like they're right?
All the time. Or we need to prove we're right. I think we want to feel like we're right for validation purposes. I get that. But we really seem to be intent on proving to other people. I don't even think we're trying to change their mind. I think we're just trying to get them to somehow in our fantasy admit that we're right. I don't think we want them to go do what we say. I think it really has to do with we're just looking at, and it's never going to happen. We're looking for them to validate that we are correct.
Instead of, why don't you really want to just do what's right, right? But that comes down to your morals and your values, and that's more complicated. But I don't know. I just never feel the need really to correct people so much. It's just I don't take the.
But you did though during the pandemic. You got sucked in. You said
years,
was there one
decades ago, of course. But
let's say the pandemic. Let's just say you felt yourself getting sucked in. You know what I mean? You're having fights with people on Twitter. What was the moment that just I can't do this? Was there one moment? Did one exchange with somebody, or just one particular reason why you said I got to put this aside?
I think there's some stuff on Facebook, and you involved the kids where their school district was blocking kids sports, and I had 5 kids in the school system, and they were all involved in field hockey and wrestling, the lacrosse, the soccer, track, whatever it was, and they wouldn't let these kids do anything. They'd rather have them sit at home, and with the school board, and I was just getting angry, and the administrators and complaining, and I mean that's okay. I mean if it's your kids, and you
certainly
someone needs to step up in the school board, they're just going to do whatever they want, but. Generally speaking, I was, when I got, probably the first time I got blocked from Twitter, and I got a message that said,
You've been banned.
You need to apologize.
Oh, wait.
And then you'll be reinstated.
Apologize to who?
To the person or people that I offended. I needed to.
I had never heard of such a thing. That's a thing?
It was? Oh,
you have to apologize?
I was
Twitter requires
for years. Yeah.
I never heard that.
Yeah.
Wow.
You never?
No, I never had Twitter. That's one thing I just never really. I don't know.
You offended somebody that we don't like offensive behavior and stuff like that. So
Twitter to me was always been the garbage dump of the internet.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to say it that way. Not that it's grassy fields everywhere else, but it's like
it just there's so much crap on there too. I don't have a lot of time for it, man. So the kids will sit there. You see kids and you see people on Snapchat and stuff just spending hours and hours. It's so sad.
Yeah.
Instead of talking to people or being with people in person, it's just.
Who does this anymore? I don't mean with all the cameras and everything, but who sits down across a table? You travel a lot for your job, so you're in a lot of. I'd imagine you coffee houses, meeting for a cocktail afterwards, clients and so forth. It's a loaded question, Steve, because naturally where there's alcohol involved, there tends to be congregation. I get it. But even coffee shops, it seems like we don't, in 2023, we just don't really go and sit and enjoy the coffee there with humans. It seems like they're on their phone, they get the coffee and they leave. Like I think Starbucks has removed a lot of the seating in a lot of the Starbucks across the country, I just read, because there's no one staying in there.
No one does that. It's crazy.
Do you see that? I mean, did you ever think about that as you're traveling?
Just go buy those expensive drinks and sit in the car and drink. That's nuts, man. I try not to go to McDonald's anymore. I love McDonald's, but I just try not to for my diet purpose. But you see the people that are older, I guess, hanging out, drinking coffee and just playing cards or shooting the shit. And I'm just like, wow, that's.
It's a generational thing? Just a generational thing now.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know how to. Yeah, maybe this is unique and this is cool. I haven't done this in a long time even.
Really?
Not that.
Do you find yourself
people, but
because one of the reasons this started was that I just wasn't having, for the most part, and it's nothing against my real estate clients. I love what I do. I just do, but to have real. Like conversations, I just wasn't doing that anymore. Not with my kids. Not everything was always pointing back to a device. And when I would call somebody, because I'm a dinosaur, I'd call somebody, no one will pick up, and then they'll say, "Hey, text me if you need me. Text me." And I just hate it. I just hated it. And then I saw the popularity of like Rogan in places, people just sitting down and talking at each other, hopefully with each other. That's why it attracted me. But so many people have sat in that seat or on this panel and said that it's so refreshing, whether, I performed well or not here. It's like I was able to communicate with another human, because no one does it. I mean, I had a mother of 3 on here tell me that she started crying because I don't even talk to my kids face to face enough during the week. It's still, trying to find where they are. Everything's done by text. And I just think we're losing something.
Even starting a conversation with kids can be really challenging, because you just really have to next level questions, and they just don't. Right? You don't necessarily. They don't either want to answer it, or like I heard you and someone on the radio, I think yesterday maybe it was, saying about the follow up questions, and you ask them a question and they give you an answer, and you're like, well, okay, well, tell me about that, or explain that to me, or how did you make that decision, or what did you do next, or and it's like, I don't want to talk about it. I told you, or I think that social media has done a lot of that to kids from a communication standpoint. It's how we go back.
So, in that same vein, let me ask you this: you are in the medical field, and you're, by the nature of what you do, I'm going to make an assumption here, but you're dealing with a lot of astute people in your field, technically astute people, where there's been generally a lot of education. They're doing dynamic things in that field. So even in that field, do you see people still preferring the impersonal communication over like the substantive communication when that's more effective at times? You see people still reverting to the device as opposed to regular communication, even in your field?
I work with brilliant people. I think some of the most brilliant people in the country, or the world for that matter. Some, yes. Some, the only way we communicate is like maybe on LinkedIn through messaging. It's weird. It's kind of strange. Others a lot through email. But there's still a good bit of personal.
That's still a thing, right? Email.
Yeah, it is. Email and texting. There's still a fair amount of that. And we do quite a bit of that, more than I prefer, especially when it's like, boom, boom, boom. It's like, well, I need this, and how do you do that? And they may have multiple things that you need to do in one, respond to in one email. My goodness.
Right.
Or in a text, and you're scrolling back up in the text. I'm like, okay, what else did I need to respond to in here? Did I answer that? But there's still, maybe some of the older, not middle age, or maybe 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Well, those people still they do. There's a lot of communication, I think. Whether we do it in a physician office, in a hospital setting, or over lunch, or we don't go golfing and stuff anymore with clients, just physicians like we used to back in the old days. A lot of that shut down, but yeah, good old days, pharmaceutical days. But it's good. Yeah, a lot of it centers around. I mean, relationships they're very important when you want to get time with someone and you want them to respect you, and when they have a lot of choices on the decisions that they make, right? A lot of it comes down to a relationship when you can choose in different ways. Who do you feel you have maybe the best connection to, right? If I can use 5 different products, 5 different bottles of water, and I know that you sell nice water, and I'm like, I'll buy nice water and drink it. Sure, he's a good guy, right? So I think those connections are still. I don't know what it's going to be like for the next generations trying to.
It's our generation
to sell without being able to do that. And I think
right.
the kids who can do that, right, will do that and have developed those skills, because anyone can develop social skills. Some are naturally inclined, and I'm not necessarily one of those people who you can just put in a room and I'll just go around talking to everyone there.
Yes,
that's
you
not,
will.
That's
yes,
not natural to me.
Yeah, okay.
And that's okay. That's okay, though. I know my limitations, man. But I work to minimize them, right? Go put your strengths to work for you and minimize the limitation.
It's a strange time, just in business in general. Like I'm a realtor, so when I talk to potential clients or clients, I have to first try to unwind what their preferred method of communication is. And I'm okay with understanding the importance of text messaging. It can be very useful, but there are times where I can't get clients to pick up the phone, and I need 2-3 minutes. I have this app now that I do video clips. I actually take a video, and it just text it to their phone, because I need this 2-3 minutes to explain what's going on, and they won't pick the phone up. And some of them love it, some don't love it. Usually, if they don't love it, they'll say, "Hey, just call me. I've been trying to call you." I guess what I'm saying, the playground we're playing in right now is very strange for a 57-year-old guy, which is what I am. And it's different now. It's different, and I'm kind of glad I'm at the age that I'm at, because I don't know if I would enjoy it as much if I was 20, starting over again, doing it in this playground.
Imagine, my gosh,
it's different.
Yeah. I mean, you got to meet people where they at too, and if that's your business, right? It's a good idea taking the video and send it to somebody. I mean, you don't know if they're going to look at it or not. Does the app tell you if they watch it?
Yeah. It's a cool thing.
It is cool.
And I think that most clients want the information, but and I hate to say it this way, it seems to be my younger clients. They don't want to talk on the phone. They really struggle. And I say younger, 30 or under, 32, 33 or under. They really don't want, and I don't know what that is, but Rocco Cozza and I, on some of our one-on-ones, we've talked about there's an aversion for some young folks when they see someone calling them unexpectedly. They find it offensive. They find it personally, this person's offending my personal space. No, it's a phone call. They don't have to answer it, and they don't take the call because they're not prepared for it. I mean, that's what we've had some people on here saying. I've had some younger folks on here just saying that they're just not prepared. I want to respond after I've had time to contemplate. Well, yeah, we all would probably want that in an ideal situation, but what's the harm of reaching that person, giving them affirmation that you got the call, and I'll call you later with some details. Why is I'm having a hard time grasping. I'm trying to find people that have experienced something similar or have an explanation for me as to why that is.
Why does it change? I don't think it was a subtle change. Meet people on, I think there's a lot of adults that play Fortnite and stuff like that and Call of Duty. You meet them on there, and you've got this, and you're conversing with a group of people like that while you're playing a video game. Maybe that's where you start connecting with some clients. Say, "Hey, do you play
No.
Fortnite? Let's
it's not going to happen.
Let's go tonight. Hey, you might do really well. Top seller for the month."
That might really be a fish out of water, man. I don't know. I just, it's just a very interesting circumstance.
I read something about the new etiquette is you're not supposed to leave people voicemails.
Wait, what?
And that kind of goes against, I don't know what not goes against it, but
goes against
people
my
would rather
video mail.
Listen to the message and then they can have time to ponder their response, I suppose. But they don't want to just be surprised by a phone call. They send them a text first and just say, "Hey, I'm going to call you," or "I need to talk to you about something," and then you call, or I don't know.
So wait a second. So the caller ID isn't enough of a warning that you're calling them.
It's I'm not ready for this.
Well, exactly. And I'm trying to understand how we got here. It's because I'm obviously missing something. And it didn't happen overnight, but to me it kind of probably did, because I didn't really start taking notice of it until my kids got a little older, and I can't get my kids on the phone. And I started to take it personally, and then I was talking to my ex-wife, and she goes, "Don't take it personal." She goes, "They don't answer at all. None of them do. They don't have phones for phone calls, Eric. They have phones for texting and social media." Until that was like a smack in my face, and I was the one getting them the phones when they were of age. I just didn't get it, and now I look back, it's like, holy shit! It's not a telephone anymore. It's not a phone.
Look at their phone usage.
I started paying attention
from a phone call perspective.
I started taking. There wasn't any.
No, and some of them there were very few texts, but the data was like 1 billion gigabytes or whatever it is used per month. But there's 10 minutes of phone calls, and the data's it's a Snapchat and TikTok and whatever else it is. The threads are.
Do you think at all? Here's a question for you. Do you think there is a social responsibility? And this is a slippery slope we're going to head down, but I want to get your thoughts on this. let me back it up this way, Steve. You know me well enough, and I think anyone that's followed this podcast knows that I'm a capitalist, and I definitely am. I'm about as pro business as you're going to get.
Yeah.
I think you're probably the same or something close. I do fear at times, though, that the large social media houses, top 3, wield so much power in society today. Their reach is so multifaceted, especially when you bring in the psychological aspect of their product and how humans interact with it, that there needs to be an extra level of social responsibility placed on these firms. And when you say that, they feel that you're just slipping into regulation, and I just think that we never encountered anything like this before social media, started. That these companies are in our heads, our children's heads, all the time, and the effects of it, I don't think we can afford to let it go without some kind of regulation. And I don't know what that regulation looks like, but I'm starting to change my 100% pro-business, hands-off, laissez-faire attitude because I'm worried about the influence and the weight of these companies. Do you have those fears, though?
Oh my gosh, where does it end? Right? Facebook, Google, Apple, Amazon, and those companies, the sheer magnitude of the massive, how large they are. Mm-hmm. And in a capitalistic society, those stocks to do well and grow, they got to find new ways to bring in more revenue. And it's so pervasive in everything we do. You think about through U.S. history, right? Companies the railroads, the steel companies, and they had massive influence. And I think they were broken up by the government because they were too large and powerful, right? And then the communication companies, the Bells, AT&T, they broke them up. They stepped in. Well, why wouldn't they step in and someone could step in and break? Think different times. It's not that.
I've wondered this so often.
The regulation is there in so many ways, but there doesn't seem to be much regulation in that regard. It's very selective, and there's got to be they control a lot of the money and the power.
Well, it's a great point, though. I haven't unwound it all the way, looking back historically, about this government, regardless of who's been in power, has taken the chance to break up many industries. But even in some of the industries that have been broken up decades ago, in this current environment, we haven't really seen it. Like, there's only really a handful of oil companies. I think in the mid-'80s or the late '80s, when Exxon and Mobil joined and it wasn't contested, I think that might have been the start of ushering in an era where regulation wasn't at the forefront anymore. I think if you look back at it historically.
Speaking of oil companies, what do you think? What's the future of oil?
Oh, yeah, the future of oil. Let's do it. Let's make the right turn,
baby.
So I'm not a hunter and a fisher, and I'm not an outdoorsman. But I don't want naturally, I don't want to pollute. I don't. But I'm not an environmentalist by any stretch of the imagination. It just doesn't interest me. So I'm probably indifferent to the green movement and all that stuff. I think that it's ridiculous for us to think that we can make changes so quickly overnight at the expense of the consumer and our way of life. I think we should always keep improving as a species. And if there's a better way of doing something, a kinder way to us and our environment, we should figure out and move toward that. But I don't believe in rash decisions, especially when they seem nonsensical to me. The combustion engine, there's been nothing that has rivaled the combustion engine for all these years. And to think that overnight we're going to make electricity replace it when the cost of acquiring the necessary ingredients to make electricity work can be as damaging, if not more, to the environment than the oil. That's just my take on it. It's a short-sighted, it's a long answer to a very short-sighted movement. It's how are you going to replace, what is it, would you say, a decade or a century and a quarter of the combustion engine overnight? How's it going to happen?
There's, like you said, there's sometimes producing that electricity is more harmful than the.
No one wants to talk about that, though.
No, and
cobalt mines, right?
lithium dispose. What do you do with all these these batteries that need to be disposed of? I mean, those things catch on fire. It's horrific. I mean, just the inconvenience. I am kind of an environmentalist.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've been composting for the last 25 years.
Composting?
Yeah. To my wife's dismay, we got the little fruit flies all over the house to prove it. Everything from coffee grinds to eggshells to carrot peels and you name it. All of it. I save it all.
You like to garden?
Composter.
You like to garden?
I garden. It's one of my hobbies. I spend a lot of time gardening.
Okay.
Organic gardening.
Okay.
So I plant a lot of trees. I love to spend time in the outdoors. I am, but it just doesn't make it's nonsensical. How much combustion is going on over in Europe right now? With or in Asia, whatever stuff, Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah, we just don't seem to.
Good heavens.
Well, the whole mining thing aspect just drives me nuts. Again, I think it's just. I think that we as a society just lean on our feelings too much in this current world, and we're legislating based on our feelings, and we're maneuvering in society based on our feelings, as opposed at the expense of looking at facts, hard facts,
real facts.
Yeah, I mean,
someone else's.
And it could be it could be anything, and it's like I know it always comes back when you start talking about this stuff. It always comes back to left versus right, and I mean, I think that's how we disseminate it in terms of voting and all that stuff. But the whole idea that we somehow are putting such a strong value on feelings or assumed feelings over facts in many areas of society, it's just not. We're seeing it on the news constantly. It's just not ending well.
I mean, this shouldn't be a it's. Like I said, it's I love the environment. I care about it. But how much water does it take to mine lithium? I mean, you think about these things and to actually have an honest conversation with people and actually be like, oh, okay, why? And someone comes back and is like, well, it actually doesn't take that much water to mine lithium, Steve. You're incorrect. There's new technology. And I'm like, oh, really? Is that true? How do you? And I think, oh, you could, maybe that's a way to change someone's mind if you're willing and open to having an honest conversation with people. And if you have an open mind, because you don't feel you always have to be right. And for me, it's not a question of me being right. It's just the facts as I understand them, and things don't make sense.
Well, we are never. It doesn't seem like we're ever humble enough with our internet proclamations that we could be wrong. And the idea that we don't know everything, and there could be a lot of data on the subject that we're not privy to. I do something called. I used to have I apologize. I had a word in front of it, but basically, I'm a big believer in indifference, and not in a harmful way. I just honestly believe if there's not enough interest in me on a subject, or I don't have enough facts at my disposal, or I haven't invested the time because I'm just not inclined to do it, there's nothing wrong with just saying I'm just indifferent toward it, But when you do that, because we're so up in our feelings now all the time, that when you use the word indifference, or someone brands you as an indifferent person, you're now an asshole, and it's so unkind, and how can you be indifferent to this or that or this or that? It's like we're not using the definition of the word correctly. But I'm a big believer in indifference, because I think society moves better if people understand what they're indifferent about and just move on, and don't just because the world presents all this information on so many different subjects doesn't mean that we have to have an opinion, a finite opinion on everything. We can't do it. We're deluding ourselves to believe that. I don't know anything about Ukraine. I don't. I mean, I haven't done a deep dive on Russia versus Ukraine and giving all the geopolitical things. I just don't know. I don't want to see anybody die. And I think generally Russia's probably at fault here, but I don't know enough. So I'm not going to get in an entanglement with someone on Russia or Ukraine. I'm not interested in getting in the entanglement.
Yeah.
I'm interested in no one dying. I'm a good person, I think, but I just don't want to go there. So I should be able to just not have an opinion and be okay with that. I don't think we're permitted not to have opinions anymore in today's society. We have to state what we are.
Yeah.
It's expected.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When you were young, do you remember, I use this example, when 80s and 90s. Once a year, once every 2 years, Steve, someone would come to the door and bang on the door and hand us a little Democratic or Republican flyer and ask us to vote. And then I'd go, yeah, whatever, and throw it in the trash and go back and eat my cereal. That was the extent of like people identifying as a Democrat or Republican. I didn't, and then when I got involved in local politics, we picked a party and we did our thing, but it was like we didn't wear it as a badge of identity all the time, like a badge. Like we're walking around today, 85-90% of the society with a badge on identifying that we are this thing, whatever this thing is. So how we get there? How'd that happen? Is that a result of the web?
I mean, the information's been out there. I think it's probably the immediacy of the information, though, and the way it's delivered to us, right? And I think social media has a lot to do with it. A lot of it just makes you condition your mind to always be, I think back to COVID again, when I started looking up statistics, ridiculous stuff, Johns Hopkins website, like how many people were infected today. Oh my gosh, there's 800,000 people infected and 50,000 people have died. You're like, oh, it's horrible. And I would keep updating that. And like, why am I doing that? What is that? It's making you crazy. And I think that stuff conditions your mind to keep looking for those things and going there and maybe.
Are the media houses to blame for that? Or are we at blame because we just simply can't control our own impulses?
A lot of it's impulse control. Absolutely is. Impulse control is a difficult thing in many ways. Mm-hmm. It affects me. It affects a lot of people. Mm-hmm. But when you don't take the time to think about and care about other people's opinions or thoughts or feelings, and it's just like, I feel this way and you're an asshole because you don't, and I've distanced myself from that. I just don't want to be a part of it.
I get it, but it's like we can't totally distance ourselves from it. You would like to, but it's still going to rear its ugly head. It might not come in the form of social media. It might come in like an exchange you have with someone down at the farmer's market or something. It always will rear its head. And that's the unfortunate circumstance. I mean, you can minimize. I don't know why we're so identity centric now. We are. We really want to proclaim what we are and who we are, and and challenge our genders. We want to challenge everything. Like and so in moving there, part of my next set of questions for you is like, I want to get your thoughts on what truth means in 2023. You can give me a standard definition of truth right out of Webster's, but I mean, how does the concept of truth operate in 2023? And I guess you could bridge that into the concept of quote unquote facts. I mean, are they irrelevant anymore?
True. Well, actually, when I think of it, being in the medical field, we look at science, real science, and the rigor and validity of the data you're looking at, and you have to look at it very critically and questioning it and being pessimistic, or not pessimistic, not the right word for it, but being critical thinking, right? Looking at it critically and questioning, as you should. I mean, you really should question everything. I don't think we question as a species, probably, for the most part. A lot of people don't question what they're maybe being taught, and I'm talking about not true facts per se about mathematics. 1 + 1 = 2. You're not going to argue that.
Does it?
Well, maybe not. It equals something else.
Some people
in a multiverse or something. Right? But,
we do shows on that.
Next time, let's get a panel. But I guess that. What is truth?
Well, how about
biblical truth? You have.
How about? Let me just ask this. Let's assume we know the definition of truth, right? It's provable, a provable fact, a group of provable facts. My question to you is, from what you see, does it really matter in 2023? In many instances, I mean, in your industry, I would hope it does matter, but even if you want to put it outside the business world and just look at it in the social world right now, it just seems to me that truth has somehow, I don't know how, but somehow, becomes subjective.
Yeah, opinions drive a lot of decisions I think we make. I learned a long time ago in the medical field from a doctor who told me that opinions in medicine are worthless. Evidence should be everything. Real evidence, clinical evidence, real science is based on fact. And it's been proven. Not like, oh, I think this should work. I mean, these are some of the brightest physicians. Not all physicians necessarily think that way. Not all people think that way. You know what?
The uneducated in that field tend to think that way. The masses, yeah.
You just think, well, this is my opinion, so why is truth?
So,
that's a good question, man.
So this is my opinion. It's a great another avenue to go down. Why do you think opinions have so much weight, or the appearance of weight,
to an individual?
In society in general, like it's like the web. You know, there's a great saying about the web, and I didn't make it up. It basically was there's two. I guess the very best thing about the web is it gives a voice to everybody. And the worst thing about the internet is it gives a voice to everybody.
Yeah,
we somehow elevated the importance of an opinion in society. We've given it a lot more weight, and we often don't discern who's providing the opinion. I mean, I don't know if it's a function of the web, is it a function of social media? I don't know, but it's like before the web, in the before times, which I miss dearly. You know, if you knew the guy to be kind of an idiot, and he gave an opinion, I don't think it held much weight societally. That's just so and so going off. But that same guy gets on the web now, and if he writes a semi-articulate tweet or something, it literally has the same weight as maybe, you know, someone in that field. It's like it shouldn't, but there, you know, because there's no personal context behind the opinion, you can't see it really. You know, it's a different arena now. So opinions have all this legitimacy in society because we don't want our. If you don't take my opinion seriously, you're hurting my feelings. Right?
Yeah, I think everyone has an opinion about something. Some people maybe have about more things than others. And you think depending on who's giving that opinion, like you had said, you know, is it a movie star, or is it a sports star, or is it a political person giving you an opinion on a matter or subject, and they think, oh, it's that person, they must know what they're talking about, or they have a podium, I respect them, I look up to them, so my opinion, their opinion is worth more than someone else who maybe actually does know a lot about that. You know, I know a little bit about a lot of things, man, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. I think that's most people.
I try to know a lot about a few things, when, you know, but and the things that I don't know a lot about, which is just about everything. You know, I tend to keep those opinions to myself.
But you see, you know, we're laughing about it, but that humility right there, the acknowledgement, you might not even consider it humility, Steve, but the reality is that's humility in this day and age. To admit to people, I don't know a lot about a lot of things. I'm great in my field. I do due diligence where it counts for me, but I know a lot of stuff about, or how do you put a lot of stuff, you know, a lot about a little. Is that how you put it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that is an honest admission that 99.9% of all the public should give the same, should have enough humility to admit that. And if we did that as a whole and self-reflect a little bit, it might not be so fucking caustic.
No kidding, man.
You know,
I know a lot about gardening. I know a lot about fishing. You know, I don't do enough fishing.
He doesn't know a lot about the NFL. That I remember. At least
not who's going to win and by how much. That's
maybe,
for sure.
Maybe now he does. I'm just going on. I'm going on past years, but
good Lord.
Yeah, I don't know, but
yeah.
We don't have it. You know, the whole thing about starting the podcast was I wanted people to walk in the door and, you know, leave the egos there, and just, if you bring humility to the table and just have an honest conversation, like amazing. And I think to a greater degree, we did this before the web. Do you ever romanticize about the years before 95 in terms of like just when you remember back on your life, like what it was like to maneuver, what communication was like at that time, the pace of life? It was just different, right?
So much different. And, and we had everything we needed as kids, let's face it. We didn't have everything we wanted, right?
There's a difference.
Kids be like, yeah, but you grew up in that time and da-da-da-da. But, kind of a humble-ish type of
certainly
beginning to life, and try to work for the things that you want and kind of progress in your career and maybe in society, whatever your goals are particularly. But yeah, humility is something that, we don't teach it, I don't think. And it's such a, if there were humility and that actually, I think that's a big part of the problem we have in society. Mm-hmm. People lack humility. And that's why they think only their opinions matter.
Why?
How
we get here? When it comes to humility?
Maybe things have been given too easy. Maybe things have come too easily for some people, and they've been given it to you. Maybe you haven't had to work hard for them. Maybe you've always told it's okay, you're doing well, even if you're not.
You don't think it's the web?
Good job.
The web giving them a voice? Like, you think there are children?
You're awesome. You're the best.
I agree with all that, but do you think there are children that feel that their opinions are more weighty than they are because they're putting it out there, and in their brain, it's out there and everybody's going to see it. The whole world's going to see what I have to say. Reality is that's not the case. They think so. They think that they're on a level playing field in terms of reach, or they're deluded to believe that.
Does it make them feel better about themselves? Do they have maybe they actually have a low ego or a low self-opinion of themselves, but they don't want to admit it, and they want to tell other people. Like I heard on the show, one of your radio show, and they're like, why do people who think they're so tough, why do I have to tell you how tough they are, or how smart they are, or how much money they have, or who they know, or why is that?
Yeah, that was a good segment. We were just talking about one of the things that drives me nuts is when you read someone's initial bio, or you read their self-proclaimed, who they are in 42 characters, right? It's just you read some really heady stuff. Instead of it being factual, like I am this, I do this for a living, or I'm involved in this, you see things like I'm a thought leader. I'm like, if you have to write, you're a fucking thought leader. I mean, that's a validation. That's almost like a compliment, or even like a title, I would think, that other people could bestow on you if you really were. But if you got to tell people, it's kind of like, and I think that's, and not to pick on any particular group of people, but I think that's very common. It's just we're all trying to put on like the very best. It's like the beauty pageant all the time, 24/7. They're trying to put out the best face available of who we are. Look at filters and photographs. Look at everything. We're always curating everything, or trying to, or at least we think we are. And kids, adults, I mean, it just, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, how much of this is that people, aren't really happy in life? Is it? And does this make you feel, stroke your ego, and makes, this will make me feel better. Maybe this will bring me joy by feeling better and bigger and smarter and faster and whatever else, and is happiness a function of just having a joyful attitude? I've read and heard a lot about this, but, what is it that, I think I've lost everything too many times, and for the most part, unfortunately, right? And I just think, well, just do it again. Don't give up. Don't give up on life, because life is good. Life is great. I mean, I could move up to the mountains somewhere and live in a small cabin, or build my own, and just because I'm happy. I like life. I love life.
Yeah.
And I want to live. I want to be here.
Materialism, I think, has always been there. I'm not saying, I think it's certainly exacerbated because of the web and the delivery of that, name brands, and, the illusion of so much. I get it. I think materialism's always been in society.
Yeah, agreed.
Because I struggled in, in the 80s for certainly, when I was in a pot to piss in, but I had to have that Rolex. I couldn't afford it, but I had to have that Ralph Lauren suit. I had to have those things. I had to have those things because I valued them, or not because I thought that was part of my persona. And I think we're all guilty to a degree of that. And the older you get, it's easier to let go of that stuff. But I think it's harder on kids now growing up with the web because there's so much of it all the time.
Absolutely.
You know?
And I was a kid, I felt that way too. You know, I wanted the Ralph Lauren polo shirt or the Nike shoes, and we couldn't really afford them. But, you know, I started working for stuff that I wanted then.
Different then.
You know, I'm like, okay, I want these. Parents can't give them to me and that's not their fault. That's just, you know, a bigger family. And so I wanted things. I started working. I started cutting lawns and shoveling driveways on snow days. And I'd be out at 7:30. The kids were sled riding and in snowball fights, and I'd be shoveling driveways until 5 o'clock. And, you know, I'd make $120 or something like that. It was a lot of money back then, right? And I'd paint and do jobs and all this stuff because I'd want to save money for a bike or things I wanted to buy.
Yeah, I'm sure there are still kids doing things. I'm not saying that all kids don't do that, but I think we're definitely, and I am definitely guilty of raising kids, with the concept of I want more for them than I had. And after reflecting on that, years later, you have to be honest with. I was honest with myself and realized that I actually had it pretty damn good. My gig was not bad. Yeah. You know, but I was using materialism as like the benchmark. You know, like what I was grading everything on, and it's just, I don't know. I just don't know.
If you go back thousands of years, materialism, you're right. There's evidence of it in the earliest recorded record.
100%.
It's not a new concept, and it's not. It's a part of the kind of the stain of humanity.
It is because we do it to ourselves. You know, this brand of suit is only valuable because other humans have decided it is, and we capitulate to it. I hate to use that word, but it's kind of what we're doing. We're capitulating to it, and we're choosing to do that. I mean, if you really unwind it, take a step back, it's really insane. It is, and we're all guilty every single day of valuing things all day long. You know?
I don't. I got my first couple new pairs of work shoes in 15 years, man. Soles falling apart.
There's a man with a lot of kids. Right.
You know, I get some crazy glue out or Gorilla Glue, and I glue my shoes back together. People are like, "What are you doing?" Walking through the airport, and my sole falls off my shoe. It's happened before. It's pretty.
That's not the Steve Duchi I remember from like.
I mean, you get older and you try to kind of simplify things, right? And what's really important.
Yeah,
my look isn't that important.
I had it's so well put. I had a guy have a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and he was asking me like, "What's the biggest difference in your life? How are you living your life now?" And I said, I came across the point where I look at how I live in maybe the last decade or so, and I kind of like things that are like a little worn out, a little used. I mean, I whether it's a car, like I really don't gravitate to brand new things. I mean, I like my guitars played and worn a little. I like them like that. I like, I would buy used dress shoes online. I would buy, I would go to a thrift store. I kind of like, I don't know if it's a look, but I just kind of like the things that I have that are worn. I can't explain why. I don't lust for brand new anything.
That might be a trend. Let's say it's probably kind of cool thing with kids. They like to go thrift shopping.
I salute it.
I've never been to a thrift store, and I'm not saying against going. That's what kids do. That's all they get all their stuff. They'll take.
I think it's fantastic.
A bag of clothes. I'm like, save that for your little brother or sister, or your cousin.
Oh, no,
I can get $1 for each one of these shirts at the store.
See,
and then I can. Buy a new one or a used one for 10. I'm like,
wasn't there a song like 10 years ago? There was a rap song I think the kids were into, like going to the thrift store or something. Because my kids, it was their first experience listening to the radio. It was some thrift store song or some bullshit.
I don't ever remember saying, or anyone saying, "Hey, you want to go thrifting tonight?" But that's what they do. They're like, "What are we doing? We're going thrifting."
That's actually not a bad gig.
My nephews, my kids, their friends. We're going thrifting.
Well, you're in that.
Some down at college. They go thrifting down at.
You're in that upscale neighborhood, man. They don't be thrifting up in your way.
Oh,
you're in that high rent district. No. All right, let me throw this at you. So everything we see and experience, this is reality. That's the only reality I've ever known my entire life. That's it. We maneuver. We're here. We're fucking here. This is it. What I've learned on this podcast over the past 4 years is that the virtual reality, and I don't even mean the specific virtual reality technology, the VR glasses. Forget all that right now. But the virtual world of humans, the world out in the web, and more specifically in social media, all that imaginary stuff has a lot of weight. And what I've noticed the last couple years, let's say 2-ish years, maybe since the pandemic, I think we could be at a dangerous spot maybe where the virtual world has now eclipsed the importance of the physical world. Do you think any of that's valid, or do you think we're a ways off yet still?
Well, the virtual world is an easy place to live, right? It's less confrontational. It's you're less likely to be challenged, have your feelings hurt. It's easier. It's mindless. It's, I like to sit back and watch a series or something on HBO Max or Prime every once in a while too, and that's kind of, I think of that's like a virtual reality world. Seeing how someone else is living their life, like, oh, look at that.
You're immersing yourself into it.
Yeah, and I fall prey to it too. I'm not immune to that by any stretch of the imagination, but the physical world can be hard. It's a hard place.
And mean.
It can be mean. It can make you feel bad. It can hurt your feelings. I get my feelings hurt every day. A customer says no, or do I let that affect my feelings? And sometimes you just want to escape to a virtual world where life is easy. Video games, and I like video games too. I don't really have that much time to play them anymore, but I think, what do you think about virtual and physical?
Well, you brought a great angle to it. I never thought about movies and television and video games as part of that virtual world, but I guess the multiplayer games with video games, that makes sense to me. I was just talking just in general about people's Instagram profiles, their Twitter profiles, their Facebook profiles, that they're living in there. They're living because I have friends of mine that literally at least from what I know of them, when I do know them in the real world, they're fantastic people. But what a stranger would gather from their profiles is nothing close to what the experience in reality is on so many levels. I just don't mean appearance. I mean habits and demeanor and things. It's just different. It's not like I want someone to see my Facebook profile. I always said it's going to be it's going to be a snapshot of the best of me, but I want it to be real. No one wants to see me at my worst. I get that. No one saves pictures of themselves and their worst in their family album, right? It's supposed to be an album of your life. I get that. But at the same time, if you meet me and you've been following me for whatever reason on social media for a period of time, I want you to feel like that's the same person that I kind of gathered when I saw you online. Yeah, that's kind of how I've tried to maneuver, but I don't know if most of society cares or does it that way. I don't know. I honestly think that the real world, especially with our younger generations, doesn't hold much weight anymore. They have to be there and to work and to do what they do, but I think most of their day is spent in this imaginary who I am there. I think the VR thing's coming, right? The meta's trying to create a whole nother. And I think last year people were buying $75 sweaters for their avatar and shit. It was just nuts. I can't. It is what it is. I just are we losing importance in the physical world? Is it going away?
It seems like it's progressing in that direction, man. Do you ever see this going back? Unless there's something catastrophic that happens.
Well, okay. So here's the only thing. I don't know why it's that important completely, because the one thing that puzzles me is and maybe it's just the generation I grew up with and the prior generations, but men like girls, men like females, girls like boys. I mean, it's just like it's a natural thing. You're attracted to the opposite sex most of the time. You can't have the physical union of two humans, the sexual component of that's only here in the physical world, the tangible world, right? So that's something that is not the same in the virtual world. There's a differential. And I'm wondering how the human sexual experience is not valued the same as it's been prior.
I mean, how long is it going to be before you can have a virtual AI, and maybe it's more than just putting goggles on and thinking you're experiencing it instead of you actually really are experiencing it with, I mean, there's some pretty crazy, there's a couple crazy, one really crazy one, someone that actually took the mind out of someone who was alive, somehow their consciousness, and put it into an AI robotic being. I mean, it's all that stuff is going to be, unless something stops it, and if you rely on the government to regulate it, how are you ever going to have international regulation of everything? Are we going to have? No,
it's a wild west out there.
This virtual is going to actually become reality.
So they'll blur.
But it's
blur. It's blurring now. Some people think it's starting to blur now.
Probably within our probably within our lifetimes, man. We're going to see
the sex robots.
Yeah.
No,
not for us. I mean, married, of course. We have no interest in that, but
it's just like a couple months ago, Rocco Cozza and I had our sons on who are roughly the same age, 20. They, father-son gig. It was kind of cool.
That would have been cool.
Yeah, it was cool, but it was interesting because Rocco and I came across, we ended that podcast with the same. There's a little bit of disappointment there, and the disappointment came in how they were maneuvering the dating world, and the way they communicate with someone they might be interested in, and how they all get together for frat parties, and everybody's in the same room, but most people are just sitting around texting, and once in a while they get drunk and they dance. I get it, but it's so the way they're interplaying. And I don't know if it was Gabe, Rocco's son, or my son that made the comment that sometimes it's not worth going and actually talking to somebody that you might have an interest in, even if you never met them before, to start a conversation, because if they reject you, you might go on blast. I'm like, what are you talking about, blast? And he says, well, it's not worth the heartache of like her, putting in a group chat with all her friends and making fun of you because she rejected you. And I'm like, I mean, it's, I was always told dating was a numbers game. Like, you're going to have to strike out 10 times to get a home run, right? I mean, that's like, but I didn't want to oversimplify it. Yeah. But that was my first inclination. But I had to really bite my tongue, Steve. And I was like, let it unwind it. And I guess what they were getting at is that, like, in some weird way, I still think there's like, in that arena, there's like cyberbullying going on. And when I hear the word bully, I have to take everything kind of with a grain of salt, because the definition today is a lot different than the definition I remember. But the idea was that, both sides of the equation are very ruthless at times on the web, and these kids they're terrified of being made fun of in their mind of groups of people on these, making fun of them. Now, whether that's actually happening or not, I don't know, but the impression. And then I went out and sought that same conversation with other parents since then, and they're all telling me the exact same thing.
No way.
So how does anyone going to get together? Like, how is anyone really... So I'm trying to understand what the dating thing is for that age right now. How that works with texting and social media. It just seemed a little dystopian, but also just depressing. Like to go up to a stranger that you might you're in the same class with someone, and you later in the semester go up and talk to them because you're interested in them, and the fear level. I mean, I think men always kind of had fear of approaching when you're younger, the opposite sex, and getting rejected. No one wants to be rejected, but the fear of rejection is at a different level at that age.
Jeez, and that's a problem. I mean, a fear of rejection is gonna, I think, can hold you back from a lot. right? In just about everything. You're going to get rejected in job interviews. Mm-hmm. You're going to get rejected in business. You're going to get rejected in whatever field you're in. And you have to learn to just be like, okay, just go on to the next opportunity. Mm-hmm. Like you said, it's a numbers game. You know, I've been riding my bike up to, meet people in the Cathedral of Learning Law at Pitt, and it was, or in the library, or in the Towers cafeteria, or mm-hmm. wherever. I mean, fraternities made it a lot easier, granted, mm-hmm. To meet people that way. But man, I probably should pay more attention to that with my kids to see what they're doing.
It's just different. I think the way they're maneuvering is just, it's just different. And I would not want to be dating today. And I just don't know. I'm just not sure how it's exactly done anymore. Yeah. And they all go to these parties or these places where they're all together, but they're all on their devices. I would love to be, like when we were younger, there was clubs, right? I mean, I don't know what the clubs are like today, but you go to a dance club at a Marriott or something, and people were in there usually dressed pretty well, because you wouldn't go to those places. I mean, you made a point to dress well, right? You go there and you have cocktails and you talk to people and you go out dancing, and that was it. That was the thing. I wonder what it's like now. I mean, they're in there. Are they like looking at their phone the whole time? Like, what are they doing? Like, what does that look like?
They used to have under 21 dance clubs and nightclubs, right?
Yeah.
There was one in the North Hills I used to.
What'd they call that?
Used to go to.
What was the name of that?
McKnight Road.
Yeah, it'll come to me. They had a couple of them.
It was a lot of people there, and it,
mm-hmm.
It was easy to meet people there. There were no phones. My kids have often said, you were lucky you grew up in an age without phones.
I've had my sons told me that.
And I think it does wear kids out. And a lot of kids
we
probably would like to not be in... I mean, how do you get the companies that have so much money and control and power? How? Because a movement, in this case, would have to... How would it ever gain traction, and how would
because a couple kids get the word out there through the device?
I'm done with my device, and then you're excommunicated because no one else wants to talk to you. Then because you know, you're right. It's good not to be dating anymore. We're lucky.
Yeah,
beautiful wives, and we don't have to worry about that.
It's just interesting that I felt really sad hearing that, because I'm like, wow, they're missing out on something. Even if they weren't really emotionally wrapped up into being bullied, it was the idea, like, it's an aggravation. Like, I don't have to go through all that. Like, it's like, it'll suck to be rejected, but it's just I gotta deal with them. So, not knowing who else in this room she texted and knows about that whole thing, and I guess it was, I could just tell it was like bringing anxiety a little bit to them, even to talk about it. And they're two good looking guys. Like, it's like, come on. I mean, I don't know. I don't know, but the whole idea of taking the physical nature of a relationship, the sexual nature of a relationship, out of the equation and moving it into a virtual space, I don't understand. I can't envision what the hell that's going to look like.
We're moving there quickly. Then we are moving there quickly, buddy. I have to watch that. With your son and the other, see how they're talking.
It's an eye opener. Yeah. It's definitely an eye opener.
I'm going to see my son's down at college. I'm going to see him tomorrow. Good questions to ask. I've only seen him once since he started in August, so it'll be good to catch up and see how what life is like these days on campus. Probably a little bit different than it was for me.
Do you think that we are? I tell you what, before I ask this question, I'm coming at it from a 100-mile view. I mean, I'm standing way back now. But do you think the web has actually, and social media particularly, that portion of the web, it's basically put everyone in competition with everyone else? Whereas before the web, you maneuver your day. You may not feel like you're in competition with anybody over anything. If you're a salesman, sure, you feel like you're competing for business, or you may be competing for a promotion or competing on the softball field. But generally, before the web, you weren't really competing with people in society. But are we competing now with everybody? or is a good portion of the population feel like they are?
Like for share of voice, likes, followers, or yeah.
I would think.
Yeah, man. Are we? Maybe it's not the competition you think about. We were maybe playing in sports or in sales or we compete that way. But this is like, what do we need to come down to lacking humility?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You feel like you need to compete for that kind of stuff that seems very superficial.
There's currency there. I think to a certain part of the population, I think they feel that the likes or followers are currency.
It's worth. You're right.
It can be worth money.
Yeah.
It can be. There's an illusion that it's worth money to everybody. No, you can subjectively monetize it, but that's only a small portion of society that can effectively do that. Right. But there's a competitive nature brought about, I think, with social media, and it's because it's always, did it really happen? If it really didn't happen in the real world, it didn't really happen in the physical world unless you can show it on social media. There's a mentality there. I think we all play into it. Like, we go to have an event, my family's in town, and let's get a picture. And you're like, well, I want to record this. I want to have a snapshot of this, and I have to fight myself to look, hey, you don't have to document every little single thing that you do. It's still valid because it happened. It's a different thing if we're walking around all day needing to record everything.
Do you do that?
I have to fight it. Maybe it's the photographer in me.
Yeah, you're a big photographer.
The historian in me. I journal a lot, so maybe there's a part of me that does that. But I see a lot of people that really constantly, nothing happens. It really didn't happen unless I have a picture of it, right? I mean,
that's pretty cool. I'm bad at that. I used to be I'm bad at taking pictures, man. I forget to do that. You're at somewhere with your wife or your kids and snap a picture. I just don't do that enough.
Yeah, I don't think there's no laws, though. I think society makes you feel bad that you don't do it, but I don't know that it's required. There's a great meme, because I like memes because they're funny. I'm not good at writing them. I would never spend time doing that, but they're funny to read. There was one that was just a picture of like this, I don't know, it was a rock concert, and there was like 80, 90 people at the front row or something. And all these young folks had their phones up and they're videotaping this whole thing, and they're looking up they're looking at their phone.
Oh my gosh.
And there's this older woman, like probably my age now, or and she's just there, like she's freaking into it, and she has no phone. She's enjoying this whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how it used to be. We didn't feel the need to have to,
live for.
Did you ever notice that? Like, go to an event, like whether it's concerts, people like to, I don't get it.
Wouldn't it be nice I think back to my first couple concerts to have some of that, like R.E.M., Depeche Mode, and
yeah, but I mean the whole thing.
How about our first Kiss show I went to with you? What was it at Wheeling?
It was in West Virginia.
West Virginia. Wow. Remember that?
Do you remember? I remember the Jeep ride. Jeep?
Yes. It was your buddy
Hobbs. Pat Hobbs.
Yeah.
I remember it well. Yeah. I remember it well, man. Yeah. But to those moments, you'd like to have that. I yearn for having that, but at the same time, I think about all the, not just me, everybody just taking so much content that, are you ever really going to have the time to? I mean, I have all these journals, Steve, and I journal every day to a certain degree. Great. Yeah, and it's been very helpful, but there's so much material that I hope that I had this nice long retirement that I can go back and revisit all this shit, because it's going to take me a long time to read through it all. But it's just, at some point in time, you need to live and not worry about the recording portion. And I think we have a whole generation who just thinks it's natural to, record everything.
Yeah.
All the time. Food. I mean, it's nuts.
Did you share your photo cloud or photo album on your phone with all your kids? Did you have the same iCloud account?
I don't. We share particular photos. Probably not, because I like a lot of dark humor. I'm always downloading shit, and it would get uploaded in the cloud. I wouldn't want that shared to anybody. But yeah, I mean, it's no secret, man. I carried a camera around when my kids were young. I have well over 1 million pictures indexed on Amazon Prime.
1 million?
Yeah, over 1 million.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and it's going to end here in this December. I've got to re-download them to hard drives and all that. They're on Google Photos too, but the actual files are.
You have to download those all. Put them something.
Yeah, I have to. They're all indexed, so I have. But that's amazing. That's more content than they will ever care. You know, I overshot everything. That's what I did.
1 million photos. Come on.
1,000,001, 1,000,002. I'll screenshot today when I go in there, and it'll say you have these many photos in your drive. Yeah.
And it's going away at the end of the year. Oh.
Yeah, the photo version, the compressed photo version on Google Photos and Amazon Photos will be there, but I have the raw copies uploaded to Amazon Drive, and they're discontinuing the service, and I need to bring them down to a device, which is going to be, I don't know how it's going to work exactly, but I'll lose them at the end of the year if I don't have them. Anyways, just if you have Amazon Drive, be aware it's going away.
I mean, that's a whole other topic. I have photo albums when I was a kid, and I have photo albums. They're in a cloud, and arbitrarily those pictures just disappear sometimes through Apple Cloud. You ever notice that? We'll lose weeks of pictures at a time. Like, where were those pictures? And they're just gone.
Really?
And there you go. Apple support, and Apple will be like, yeah. Sometimes it just happens. We don't.
That's
we don't. There's no way to get them back. Sometimes they can restore them, but sometimes they say they can't. Yeah, last time it happened, I'm like, man, we lost like 3 months of pictures. And they're like, I'm like, what can you do about this? He's like, well, are you asking me? So he said, are you asking me if I can give you some way to back these up? And I'm like, well, yeah. He's like, well, here, I can give you one of these. I can give you a 2 terabyte or something hard drive. It's still sitting in the box. I haven't done anything with it.
Of course.
I was like, I'll take it. Sure. What do those cost? Oh, a couple $100. Sure, yeah, I'll take one of those. But
yeah, and it's funny.
They're gone.
We do trust the cloud. Think about how much technology we do trust now. I've given it a second thought.
Ridiculous, dude.
Yeah, it's
digital can be erased. Can lose it all. Yeah.
Yeah, and then at the same time, kids need to understand too, and it'll be there. It potentially could be there forever too.
It could be there forever too. That's right. It can't be somewhere forever if it's back. Yeah, that's right.
Have you ever had conversations with your kids?
The cloud
on that?
I have the pictures. They go away.
Have you ever talked about that directly with your kids at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did with mine too. I don't know if it sank in, but I really tried my best to explain to them. It's going to be there.
Yeah, it's easy to screenshot something
forever.
I mean, yeah. There are. I don't know. I don't know a lot about the security of WhatsApp and those other apps, but stuff's gone. It's somewhere. It's somewhere, man.
Did you have a good time, man?
Yeah, it was great, buddy.
We need to do this way more often.
Yeah, agreed,
It's been way too long. And
let's get some more people on here. Let's call up some
we're
old
gonna do some
cronies from our past.
That might be a good idea. We could have some PageNet reunions on this
baby.
place.
We got some people we could call up. Yeah,
for sure. We'll do it again.
Introducing the connection for our time.
Wait, hold on. What was it again?
Introducing the connection for our time.
All right, so we went to Sprint PCS, so they know what we're talking about. Yeah, when the PCS thing was a thing, right? That's the personal communicator system or something. PCS.
Personal communication service, maybe. Is that what that's? Sprint PCS. It must have been personal communication.
There was another famous.
We got to save that one for next time, man.
December of '96. There was another famous Sprint ad. We were so excited too. It was new, and we'd see these ads on the television. It was a guy with a very astute English voice, and he said like, "Sprint PCS, the replacement for cellular."
That's it. That's what it was.
The replacement for cellular is here.
That's it. And we'll end on that. Introducing the connection for our time. Sprint PCS. The replacement for cellular is here.
That's it.
That's right, man.
We'll do it again.
All right, buddy.
All right, partner.
Awesome, man.
Thanks, Stevie.
Peace out.
All right, we're out, friends.